With the F1 2025 season just around the corner, I decided to get a lot of information from a well known F1 source. And remember, liketh and subscribeth. So you said earlier, is there like a thing of like there is a first and second car?
Absolutely, that is definitely a thing in F1. It's historically been a huge thing where there's a number one driver and number two driver.
Are there any number two drivers that you look to and he's going to have an exciting race even if he isn't in the best equipment?
Yeah, I'd look at someone like Fernando Alonso as I hope that Aston Martin can figure their shit out. Even though Alonso's like 42 now, in F1 that is old.
And now back to our regularly scheduled program.
Oh yeah, like the overdriving can definitely be a thing like that when you're just trying to find as much you can, and just the limitations of your machinery just doesn't allow you to go any further than your your talent can go.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a thing. It's such a huge thing in F1. Like kind of you mentioned, like being at the right place at the right time. Like all of the all the top teams have gone through stages recently where McLaren were recently down in midfield themselves. They made the rare jump up to the front. Red Bull haven't always they've been good recently, but they haven't always had race winning machinery or title contending machinery. Ferrari have gone through ebbs and flows too, where they haven't been quite at the front. You can have the right driver but at the wrong time in a team's kind of trajectory or journey.
Just because I don't you're saying names, and I know a few of them, and I'm putting them down so that I know them. But what are your like favorite teams or your favored teams?
This is such an interesting topic because I treat it very. In my mind, I've always treated this very differently to say like you would supporting a football team, for instance, or a basketball team. For me, the sport's about the drivers. So
I do the same thing. I had to research all of my drivers, like what teams they're on, because I don't pay attention to that. I only know that Kyle Larson has Hendrick because his car is Hendrick. Like his car, everything that's on it is Hendrick. But like a lot of those teams and people I don't know. This is me coming back into the sport, and I'm like, oh damn, there's a lot more to this than there was when I was a kid. Like knowledge wise of like what I know about it, and I'm like, man, a lot of it comes from the teams and stuff, but I still care about the driver themselves more than the teams as a whole.
Yeah. Like I went through a phase where I didn't really like Ferrari because I wasn't the biggest fan of Sebastian Vettel when he was at Ferrari, but I really liked the Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc lineup. I really liked that. I wasn't a massive fan of. I'm not a huge Lando Norris fan, so I can't. No, I'm not massive on McLaren for that reason because I don't like Norris. So like it's the sport's the drivers for me, and wherever the drivers are, it kind of just goes through ebbs and flows. Like I'm very, I've hated Mercedes for a very long time because I'm not a Lewis Hamilton fan, but I'm interested with that Russell and Antonelli lineup. So yeah, it kind of just comes and goes. My favorite lineup at the moment in F1, ooh, that's tough because I'm kind of like sometimes there's a lot of drivers I kind of just not massive fans of. And they're all kind of as one of those drivers in a team, for instance. I'm going to say I like the Sauber lineup a lot. I like the Nico Hulkenberg, Gabriel Bortoleto lineup. If I had one lineup to choose that I liked, it would be that one. Even though it's going to be kind of fighting towards the back and in the midfield at times, that's the one I think, yeah, I like that one a lot.
Was that? I'm sorry, I might have missed it.
Sauber. So this can get confusing because Audi have bought the team, but it doesn't become Audi until next year. So yeah, it's and obviously we've got Cadillac coming into the sport in 2026 as well.
Yeah, I heard that. I was wondering. I completely forgot about that. I had heard that was happening. What is your thoughts on that, especially coming into a new car too?
Yeah, it's been such a yo-yo. I'll do one more race. It's been such a yo-yo with this. I'm gonna go, actually go Montoya. I know McLaren is very overpowered in 2005, but I love Juan Montoya, and I know he did some NASCAR bits as well. I love Juan Montoya. I'll do the Nürburgring.
Juan Pablo.
Juan Pablo Montoya. That's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy? He was a terrible NASCAR driver.
Really? Oh.
The thing is, for him, a lot of what he complained about when he was a NASCAR driver is he could for NASCAR there are no dials, there are no switches, there are no like telling you what is happening to the car.
Hmm.
It is you have to feel it out and tell your spotter or your crew chief, "Hey, I'm feeling this. Can you do this to the car to help it?"
Yes.
Instead of all the like sensors. So he said that that was one of the hardest things to get used to.
Yeah. Imagine like coming from Formula One. Obviously, he was doing. I think it was a Indy or Champ Car at that time,
I,
2000.
I think he was doing Indy at the time.
Yeah. Obviously, there's a few more dials. There's a lot of dials on an F1 wheel. An awful lot. At least at the time. Yeah. So the Cadillac thing, it's been such a weird journey because, like, Michael Andretti and the Andretti brand were the ones spearheading this, and they are still the ones that will have, uh, they will still be responsible for this entry in many ways. Oh my goodness.
Oh, nice. That
Uh,
was all you.
that
I'm gonna blame you for that.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. But F1 were Michael Andretti basically went about it the wrong way in the eyes of the other F1 team bosses and the F1 management. And they basically like had this vendetta out for Michael Andretti that he wasn't going to get on the grid, even though he fulfilled all the criteria that was being looked for in the new team.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after when he got Cadillac on board because it's about bringing value to the sport, and this was Andretti bringing this massive brand in General Motors to be part of Formula One. Like, it's such a huge thing for like F1 wants an American team, and they want that American investment in it. Because Haas, as much as yes they are American, but it's not really American. They've got offices they share an office with Ferrari and Maranello.
Yeah.
They have, they're based, their factory is obviously based in England as well at time, part of it. So, it's not quite, it wouldn't be quite the American team like, Andretti or Cadillac would be. Basically, F1 Michael Andretti stepped aside from the day-to-day running of Andretti, and that seemed to be a big breakthrough because the new owner or the new leadership basically made concessions that Andretti wouldn't, which included basically dropping the Andretti name from the entry, and now that's why it's basically just becoming a Cadillac entry. So, yeah. So
I know one of my dad's favorite drivers ever is Mario Andretti.
Mario Andretti is the legend.
But yeah.
Mario Andretti was very upset about how this whole thing, how the whole entry was treated, because basically they weren't getting in, and there was no good reason why they weren't getting in. And basically the US Congress, the Supreme Court, was now beginning to look into why this wasn't happening, because F1's owned by Liberty Media, which is an American company.
Yeah.
And so I believe they're on the hook basically for why Andretti wasn't being allowed in. And yeah, this kind of helps make some of that go away now. But in terms of the entry itself, so Cadillac are going to be building their own engines from 2028 onwards, but for now they have to take a customer deal.
Oh, okay.
So they're taking Ferrari engines for the first 2 years.
Oh, I didn't know that at all.
So,
man, I'm more excited for 2028 because I want to know what they can do with it. Like, obviously they've done it before in racing in general, but like I'd love to see them get back into it and see like what they can do with their own stuff. But
well, they will be their own team. Like, they're going to build their own car. Like in 20, they're becoming the 11th team in 2026. So it is a fresh entry.
So will it make it 22 then?
Yeah, for the first time since 2016, it'll be a 22 car field, which we always need more we need more. We need more teams. We need more drivers on the grid. F1's been crying out for this. The fans have been crying out for this for a long time.
Do they have a limit to how many they would have on them?
So they can go up to they go up to 12 or so, 12 teams.
Okay.
But any more than 12, like you begin to run into space limits in the pit lane and that kind of thing. It's where some tracks are better made for this kind of thing than others. So yeah, 12 is kind of really the limit, I think, of what you'd really want.
Yeah.
Because F1 tried this back in 2010 where they had like 4 teams. They added 4 new teams to become up to 12 teams, but they were 4 shit teams. Like they added nothing to the sport. They were back markers the entire time. They were just nothing entries, and the drivers weren't anything special really, other than maybe 1 or 2 that had potential to grow. Most notably, it was Jules Bianchi, who died in 2014 in a crash in F1. It's the last fatality that F1 has had.
Yeah.
So, but they added those teams added nothing to the sport essentially, which is why this is what Cadillac are looking to do differently. How they'll get on, obviously they've got a better chance to succeed by entering into a year where it's a new car. So everyone has the same starting point. Like from January 1st, 2025 is when work can be done on the 2026 car. So they kind of enter a similar playing field in that sense, where they may be, well, they'll fall short. Will be what infrastructure they have set up. What's their wind tunnel like? What's their how their integration will be in terms of their chassis. All these kind of things will be the limiting factor how well they do. But I think they've got a chance to do a decent job of it. With a full year, with the same kind of time frame as everyone else to work with the car. I wouldn't expect too much too soon, though. I like 28 is probably a good shout for when things could start to become a bit better, because they'll have a few years experience. Their drivers will have a few years experience, because I imagine the plan is they're going to bring over Colton Herta to F1 would be my guess. But by 28, by the time their own engine comes into the fray, they'll have a bit more experience of operationally, they'll have a few years under their belt. So I'm excited for them, because it's always exciting when new teams come into F1. It really is. And a massive brand like Cadillac and, under General Motors, that's huge. That's not a lightly undertaken process.
I'm super excited to get into this 2025 season, and then all the stuff that's coming in 2026. It's gonna be crazy with you having a full new car, basically, and then NASCAR having to deal with the fallout of the lawsuit in 2026.
Yeah, it feels like very
and then,
polar opposites.
Yeah, and then possibly the Honda thing coming in.
I still think that's so funny. Oh, there's a car there.
Yeah, Honda leaves you completely and
Guess we're pushing now then.
I guess.
Not by choice. Yeah, the Honda thing is weird, because originally they were out of F1 because they've been. Yeah, they announced that they were withdrawing. Oh, okay. So, all right. I forgot in these earlier games, if you come in, if you come in before your pit window in this game, you have to say so. Otherwise, So I've come in a lot too early.
Goofy.
That's an unusual quirk, but yeah, the Honda thing. They're going to be supplying Aston Martin from 2026 onwards.
Yeah.
They would if Cadillac hadn't come to an agreement to supply, with Ferrari for engine suppliers, Honda would have been forced to supply Cadillac. Yeah, there's a weird rule in F1 where, with the engine suppliers, where if you can't work out a customer deal for yourself, the team that supplies the least engines already on the grid is forced then to supply the team in need of an engine.
Poor Honda.
So, because Honda are only supplying Aston Martin in 2026, they would have been forced to. Holy shit.
So who's you must have said this and I wasn't completely paying attention. Who is supplying Red Bull? I thought Honda was.
So Red Bull were, so Honda were, and then when Honda announced their withdrawal and then decided to re-enter, obviously Red Bull have already tried to. So Red Bull are going to be building their own engine. It's a hugely risky thing to do for the first time.
Yeah.
It's going to be one of the storylines heading into 2026. They're building their own engine, but they're doing so with Ford branding.
With Ford?
Yeah, so they've already have Ford on board. There are some kind of affiliations where you can kind of, for example, with Haas, they recently announced a affiliation with Toyota, and it's very clear that relationship is going to be very technical. Whereas the Ford relationship, it's going to be more so on the sponsor side of things. They're not going to add a whole lot of technical know-how to Red Bull's engine. That's not going to be how it works. But it's going to be branded as a Ford engine. So, it's a weird one. Red Bull Ford. I'm not sure what the name will break out to be. Red Bull Ford, Red Bull Powertrain Ford. I don't know. It's gonna be a weird one, but yeah, Ford will be on the unofficially on the grid in this sense in 2026. But yeah, they're building their own engine, which is that can go either way.
Yeah, very interesting.
It's a big risk.
Though with Red Bull being in the sport for so long, you would think that they'd have enough. Do you have to announce that you're going in?
They're in this is actually 2005. The version we're playing here, it was their first year in F1, and it's unusual for a top
drive through. By the way.
Oh bollocks! Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say.
I'm gonna run out of fuel. I'm actually gonna run out of fuel. It's unusual for a team like Red Bull to be so successful and not supply and make their own engine. They've just been a customer team this entire time. So yeah, it is a big step into the unknown. Like your likes of your Ferraris and the such and Mercedes, they make their own engines. Now McLaren don't make their own engines, so they'll use Mercedes engines. But yeah, typically the big teams always make their own engines. To be fair with McLaren, up until the last decade or so, they always enjoyed an exclusive works deal. So they had before Mercedes came back into F1, Mercedes supplied them their engines.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can be a bit weird like that. How kind of manufacturers can kind of, oh, there it goes.
Wow.
There we go. Big fast, rather fishing, I think, for Montoya. Actually, now that I think about it. So there we go. So in brief, I would say Leclerc, Norris, Verstappen would be the drivers I'm looking to for to contend for the title. Out of those, I trust Norris the least. Leclerc's my favorite out of those three, but Verstappen's probably the best still.
And then Antonelli for the rookies.
Antonelli will be fun to watch. Definitely, he'll be the best performing rookie because he'll have the best car of all those rookies.
Yeah. I'll go into the next year, listening to your podcast more often, doing a lot of watching when I can. So I'll be keeping track this time.
Yeah, I'll definitely try and keep an eye out. Now that you're familiar between you've laid the groundwork the last few months with the names and the such of NASCAR. So now I kind of know who to really look for. I'll root for Chastain definitely the most. But...
Yeah, I'll hop on your podcast every other week for the NASCAR report, and then you'll cut me out every time.
Only because probably I tend to, as you've probably assumed, I tend to, shall we say, diverge from the path, so to speak.
Yeah.
This can create long podcasts.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, with me getting back into my podcast too, we're trying to keep it around an hour, and then I keep going. Oh, we've been recording for basically 2.
It's hard, man. It's hard because you want that conversation just flow. All of a sudden, it's 2 hours. It's like, well, shoot.
Why? And that's about it. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Why are you still here? Bye-bye.